Hello and welcome back to this class of 5G. Without wasting any more time, let's get straight to what all of us are here for. That is, the generations of mobile communication. If you are new to this, I guarantee you will have a lot of fun and insightful learning. But if you are someone who is already familiar with all of this and wants to jump straight to some latter generations like 4G or 5G, I request you to sit through this. Because any generation of communication is not just a table of stats, some plans by some service providers, or the technology which was there in users' hands. That's just the surface. In my opinion, every generation has its own story. There is always a solid intent to achieve. Then there are actions taken to fulfill the intent. And once everything is said and done, there are still issues which give birth to the latter generations. Naturally, we have divided the flow of this course in the similar manner as well. We will mention the intent of each and every mobile communication generation. Then we will elaborate widely upon the actions that were taken, the concepts that were used or invented in some cases. We will define what the generation actually was. And finally, we will see what kind of issues were faced by users or service providers and how they were solved eventually. Kickstarting with the first generation of mobile communication, let's talk about their intents. There was not a crazy laundry list of intents. The idea was pretty simple. They wanted to achieve long-range wireless communication. And the long-range word was relative. At that point of time, what they managed to achieve might have been long range for them, but it may sound pretty short range for you. Then, they wanted it to be as clear as possible, which means least hisses and least noises. If you're a millennial, probably you haven't even heard the hisses on the phones, because they have just gotten so better. But initially, every phone conversation had hisses. You know how do they sound, right? Something like this. Service providers and researchers wanted to avoid it as much as possible. More importantly, they wanted to set the stone for the market that was going to rise in an ever-expanding manner. And while you may argue that was it all about money? Well, in a way you can say yes. The money was definitely there, but then it was needed. Because if there is no demand, there is no market, then no innovation can sustain itself. So naturally, for something as big as wireless communication, which was completely non-existent back then, setting up a market was really important. And finally, the creators were well aware that no matter how 1G turned out to be, it would always be considered as the prime reference for every other generation. In next lectures, we will see what actions were taken to fulfill the intents we just looked at. Till then, have a nice day. Happy learning.